Okay, guys. So everybody's wondering what happened at Minnesota, and uh, and I'm gonna go ahead and go over things that I think went wrong at Minnesota, and these things need to be improved upon before the tournament, big time, and they need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I mean, they will really upset prone in the tournament. For one, Zell and Waffle needs to be more consistent. Uh, when they're both on, rebounding on both sides of the floor, then Indiana's almost unbeatable. Uh, and Indiana as a whole needs to be more consistent rebounding. I think they've done a good job. Yesterday I said since Wisconsin, but I meant Butler. Butler, the Butler game is when they realize they need to rebound better. And they've done a decent job since then, but they still need to improve, right? And then last night, awful time rebounding. Uh, and like I've said, Indiana struggles against teams who are physical and big up front. And, Zell just got muscled around by a lot of credit to Tubby Smith in Minnesota. But, yeah, I don't know. Um, they need to be more consistent. And then they have to be a sort of in the front court, especially down the stretch when the game's on the line. They did a better job at that against Michigan State at Michigan State. I believe they were down by 4 points with a minute 20 seconds left at Michigan State, and they came back and won. And they did do a decent job being a sort of in the paint, but I think this team seemed lost at Minnesota last night. I mean, at times they just seemed lost, and Zell and Waffle, it just didn't seem like they had much fight. I don't know. It's unbelievable. Uh, and Waffle only getting 2 rebounds, that's just inexcusable. But, I knew it'd come back to haunt us eventually again. I think Crane needs to send a strong message. It's better to send it now than to lose in the tournament. They need Waffle to be more consistent. That's just all there is to it. Also, Minnesota's defense did a good job, and they ain't known for this, but they did a good job along the perimeter. And Minnesota did a good job in the second half. Halls couldn't hardly do anything. But the front court, like I said, I think Indiana is. I said it a long time ago, and you can go back in my blog. I think Indiana needs to be more sort of in the front court. Also, like I said, Indiana was lost, and I think that's just a lack of discipline. I mean, I think they should be focused on every possession down the stretch, what they need to do, get it in the paint, um, and attack the basket. There's certain situations like like say it's the second half, you're down by 6 points. I always bring this up. There's 2 minutes left. The crowd's going nuts. During that time, you better attack the basket. When you attack the basket in that situation, even if you miss, you're more likely going to draw a foul. Uh, as a coach, if I ever coach at the Division I level someday, like I want to, if my team's or the high school level, but if my team ever takes a 3-pointer on that position, I will absolutely go off. There's just certain times you need to take high percentage shots. And in Indiana, I think sometimes they're just like every other team in college basketball. I see it not just with Indiana, but every year I see teams get upset every year in the NCAA tournament because they rely on the three-point shot too much, and they take, and that's relying on a low percentage shot to score your points and get you a win. And I don't care how good of how good of shooters you have on your team. I just don't think you can do that. The only way you can take a three with in some of those situations is if the shot clock's running down and you just couldn't, get any dribble penetration. And in that case, you have no choice but to take a three. But I see teams take shots with like that with 20 seconds left to go on the shot clock. I mean, it just drives me bananas. I would never, ever allow that as a coach for my team. I don't care if I have Larry Bird. I just don't think you take a three in situations. Let's say Indiana was down by one, okay, with a minute left. The crowd's going nuts. They have the ball. I don't think in that case you take a three either. Or, say we're up by two and, say Minnesota or somebody's coming back and the time's, it's less than a minute. I believe you be patient on offense in that situation. You get good ball movement and try to get dribble penetration and get a good open look attacking the basket. If you get fouled, it kills the momentum, it stops the clock. So I think Indiana, I've kind of felt like this. I think I've said it all season long. I think Indiana needs to really keep their poise and focus down the stretch and recognize situations like that and get the ball inside and give it to Zeller. And Zeller needs to just take over. I mean, he has athletic ability too, and sometimes I don't know. I don't know what it is. And don't get me wrong, I love Zeller. And, I like Waffle a lot, but you just have to be you have to be able to take over the basket, and that's what scares me. Teams that can do that, keep their poise and focus, and they have that mission mindset down the stretch like that, they will advance very deep in the tournament, I feel like. And then with each win like that, they gain confidence, if they do that stuff. But relying on a three-point shot or low percentage shots to score your points and get a win, it's like leaving it up to chance. You're leaving all this hard work and this good of a team and this much talent up to chance more than anything. And 90% of sports, 90% of sports is in your head. It's a mental thing, and that's another reason why I love Coach Knight and his approach, and that's how I approach it, is those drills. I mean, that boot camp mentality during the off season and during practices and stuff, because I've said this since I was 5 years old. If I ever get to coach at a Division I school someday, I think, I will run drills so much that some of them plays and stuff, it will be like tying their shoe to the players, that's how it will be. And it won't matter how chaotic of an environment it is and stuff. And I think you get that with a boot camp approach and or disciplinary approach. And I was talking to my dad. He's a veteran, and I talked to him about it through the years. And a couple of years ago, we had an interesting conversation about it, and he said before World War One, the military, they didn't have that strong of a boot camp, so a lot of times they would freeze up on the battlefield. Well, once they instituted the disciplinary approach of boot camp, that all stopped. And that's what I've said. I'm not kidding you. I have said this since I was 5 years old. If you have a strict disciplinary approach and you drill them, much like boot camp, the team will not hesitate in the moment of truth. Nothing will shake them. And you know, I'm not seeing that with Indiana. I don't see it with any team in the country, really. You know, usually the team that wins the national championship has that, though, somewhat. I mean, not as good as Knight's teams or how Indiana was, but the best teams, they have that ability to block things out and just focus. And you know, that's what it takes. So Indiana just, they seem lost at times. I mean, it was identical to Wisconsin down the stretch, identical to Butler down the stretch, identical to Illinois down the stretch. They just mentally blew it. Wofford defensively is a complete disaster at times. I mean, he gets on the wrong side of his man all the time. It happens I don't know how many times, and I just don't understand how that isn't being addressed with Wofford and his inconsistency. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense. I would definitely make it loud and clear, you know, that you can't be like this. You can't. But on the brighter side of things, Michigan lost at I think it was at Penn State. I don't think it's at Michigan. But they lost to Penn State. Penn State's, I mean, they were winless before this game, and they won. So, first one of the season for Penn State, that helps out Indiana a lot. The game in the Ann Arbor is less significant, much like it was 24 hours ago before we lost to Minnesota. But then we lost to Minnesota, and then that game at Ann Arbor became pretty significant. But now it's kind of right back to where it was. Wisconsin, we have to watch them because they beat us and we don't play them again. I thought we did, but we don't. And they had won the tiebreaker, but there isn't any tiebreakers in the Big Ten. It's just seeding. So you have co-champions if there's a tie. So, but yeah, I mean, I felt like, you know, if Indiana won last night, as long as they beat Iowa and Ohio State, the next two games, Iowa on Saturday, then Ohio State at home, then in Ann Arbor. That game in Ann Arbor, I kind of anticipated us losing the whole time. I mean, not that I don't believe, I just don't, you know, I thought we'll probably lose in Ann Arbor. And, you know, if we, and last night, you know, I felt like before we lost to Minnesota that, you know, if we win against Iowa and Ohio State, then that game in Ann Arbor is insignificant and we should win the Big Ten. And then, like I said, we lost to Minnesota, and then, you know, so what happens? Michigan loses, but it ain't over yet. But Indiana is most definitely in control of their own destiny. I think they're almost, not quite yet, but almost a lock for number one seed, regardless, unless they just lose out. But as long as they win 2 out of the next 3, I feel good about their chances. I think they'll win the Big Ten if they do that. And I think if they win 2 games, they clinch it. So, but until then, peace.